5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're straight foot on the brake.
In-depth race recaps.
Coming to the line, Ryan Blaney's going to do it.
Pit stops and strategy breakdown.
Way to stick with it, buddy. Proud of you. Yeah, man, really good quality in there. Good job.
Fantasy racing results and insights.
Hey, driver, great job there, bud. Hey, boss.
Your weekly destination for everything Ryan Blaney and Team 12.
Looking forward to seeing you down the victory lane.
This is the Team Blaney podcast.
I'm still Team Blaney.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 224 of the Team Blaney podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we're here to break down Ryan Blaney's run in the Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the show that, for a second week in the row, I feel like is going to be a little bit tough to get through. Though last week, it was a near victory. This week, it kind of felt like any chance at a victory was swept away very early on in a race, and you kind of just had to get yourself through it. And I have a feeling I saw that bottle was a little bit more full before this weekend. Is that how you got yourself through it?
That's right. We spent the day, the rest of the day making it fun, and then we're going to make it fun tonight too.
So, yeah. We kicked off last week's show talking about the hot topic of the week, which was pit crew and should there be changes? Would they make changes? What happened during the race at Bristol that brought that topic about again? And we kind of went through our stance on that, what our philosophy was, what we thought they would do, what they might not do. Well, we got that news later on in the week, last week, that Team Penske announced they decided they were swapping out the Jackman on the 12 car. So previously, new to 2026, it was Landon Honeycutt. They have moved him over to the number 21 car for Wood Brothers Racing, and they're going to bring over Patrick Gray, who had been the Jackman on the 21. Patrick is notable for the fact that he is the one that stepped in to the 22 teams, I think it's 2024 championship race, when their Jackman, who will be notable in a few minutes, fell ill during the race and wasn't able to finish, and he went over and jacked the 22 car, and they ended up winning the championship that day. So that was the big news on Thursday. We got that out there early in the morning, and then it kind of picked up steam after that, just trying to inform everybody and let everybody know what the change was going to be. And then just a few hours later, we hear, actually, it's not going to be Patrick Gray for this weekend. It's going to be Graham Stoddard, who was the Jackman currently for the number 4, Noah Gragson. But if that name sounds familiar to you, he was an old Jackman for the 12 team dating back to 2022. He was Jackman, I'm not sure how many, like a season or two before that, but all the way through 2022 until the fall Bristol race, when there was an incident on pit road. And back then, if you left a wheel loose, they suspended like everybody, the crew chief, the Jackman, the tire changer, like everyone was suspended. So he served that suspension during the 2022 playoffs and never came back to the 12 car. He's since been elsewhere. He actually was on the 22 car. He was that Jackman for Joey Logano in the championship race that fell ill and got replaced by Patrick. So I feel like you need one of those boards, like a detective or something, like looping all the stringing all the stories together. So in the end, after all that we went through last week, and then they announced a change, and then they had announced another change to the change, we ended up with Graham Stoddard as a Jackman on the 12 car heading into the weekend at Kansas.
Well, first off, kudos to you for helping break the story, because a lot of people don't realize you're actually a news person in your day job, in your day gig. And you're able to, you have some resources. And I think it was it Sirius NASCAR XM that originally said something was happening. And then you did the actual detective work and was able to look at the rosters and find out what was happening where. So kudos to you, first off, because you actually had that before Bob even had it, I'll say.
Yeah. Listening to the radio Thursday morning, and all they really said was, they said, like, the line, from what we understand, there's going to be some personnel changes on the 12 team. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when people say that, they think they just assume, but they just left it at that. And yeah. I was like, what? So as a journalist, I run to the portal that lists all the crew members and the crew rosters for the weekend. So if you look up the 12's crew roster, it has lots of different people on there. It has the pit crew, the road crew, Travis Geisler is usually on the 12's roster because basically NASCAR gives every single team a certain number of roster slots for the weekend, and they have to fit all their members into that across all the teams that they have. So I knew where to go and look. I went to go look. I confirmed that the Jackman had changed. I saw Landon over on the 21 car, felt comfortable enough to put that information out there, having the source from SiriusXM saying that something was changing, seeing it confirmed in the crew rosters, and then kind of things went from there. So that was an interesting Thursday. Yeah, for sure. And then I thought it was going to be over with that. And then, like I said, later in the day, you find out the change had to be changed. And the reason they gave for Pat, they just said personal reasons. So we don't really know the details on that. We don't know as of right now whether he will be with the team this next weekend at Talladega. Though I do think as far as pit stops go, pressure's off a little bit for a super speedway race. So we'll have to see. But so what did you think overall? I know, I felt like emotionally and just the way we try to approach things, we want to bring good and positive energy, and it was a little bit of a kind of a tumultuous week to get through. I feel like when you are a really big fan of a team, but you're also rooting for everybody on the team.
So part of it to me I found was interesting was, so TV still makes a point to show these pit times, and there was a box at one point that showed 4 of their pit times, and this was the 2 fastest. And I'm like, where'd they get those numbers? Because the NASCAR numbers, I've got a bunch of pit stops this year that were faster than the numbers they were putting on TV there. So, and that's with Landon. So first off, I don't think everybody was calling for something and they decided to make a move, and it may have added some stability, but I think what they were looking for was even more speed. And I think that it was coming. That's the funny part, is if they wouldn't have done any of this and they would just kind of hung on to what they had going and let them keep working, I think that Landon was going to be a really good fit. On the weekend overall, it kind of makes it look like it worked. So it's definitely some stability, but now are we going to make a move back to the other guy that we've lost? So this whole thing is still really up in the air. And like you said, this week is a kind of week where it doesn't matter how long. When they go to do the 4-tire stop this week, it's 13 or 14 seconds because you're going to wait on fuel anyway. So I'm still really up in the air on whether the move was worth it in the long run or not. We're going to see. I have looked at Landon's first couple pit stops with the 21 team, and they were in the 9-second range too. So I think there was just a little thing of maybe there was a chemistry thing that just wasn't there yet. I was hoping it would show up though, and was hoping that they have a chance to get to it. But at this point, you can't play with it too much longer. If you're going to make the move, make it now so that you have enough time to get it together by the chase, I guess. So. Like I said, we'll see what the future holds for everybody involved. But it's kind of sad to see it happen in a way, because I really thought it was still getting better. But like I said, at this point, it's if you're going to make the move, make it now. They've done that in years past with other positions, right? Right around this time of year, it's
right around the same time. Yep.
So hopefully this is one that adds the stability they want. And what's so funny is somebody made a joke. And it's a joke today. It was not a joke yesterday when it happened. But man, if they were about a second slower, they would have missed the 16 car.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those funny, not funny things that you definitely need another day to find a little bit more humor in that. So like you said, stability is the key word. Hopefully across all the teams, they find that. Keep following us on social media, because we'll be taking a look at the rosters leading into this weekend, and we might be able to give you an idea whether or not it will be great for those that really care. Some folks they see them as a little team down there. They don't really care to know who they all are. They just want them to execute and move on. They care about Ryan. But for those that do care about the nuts and bolts or want to dive deep in a little bit, we'll be monitoring the rosters leading into this weekend, and you can let you know whether it be Pat or whether it be Grant.
That's something really interesting you said there, because a lot of the and it was funny, is I've had a couple conversations DMs with Bozy in the last week or two. Since I got to meet him at Martinsville, it's been really a good source of information on certain things. And a good portion of the people that want these guys' heads on a stick half the time don't know any of their names. And if you've ever followed us long enough, you know that we've interviewed about everybody they've had come through pretty much. So learn their names, learn a bit about them, go back and listen to our interviews with them, find out more about where they came from, you know, and maybe you won't be as quick to be like this whole like head on a stick kind of a thing because you don't know them or you don't get to see them. They're like an NFL football player that plays the offensive line. You can't see their faces, right? They've got a helmet on and a mask, and you know maybe you see the name on the back of their shirt if they go slow enough, but or they slow-mo it down or something. But you know, that's the funny thing about it. What you said, you know, it's we don't know anybody of these guys' names or where they came from, and I think the sport is trying to do more of that. I know Bozy kind of made the suggestion a couple of weeks ago about they should do trading cards. You know, there's 180 plus guys on pit road pitting these cars. How cool would it be if you had trading cards for all these guys? You know, so you get to see a cool picture of them on the front and then on the back a little bio. This guy, you know, that guy. You know, we've done the bios ourselves by doing the interviews that we've done with all the guys. And we know that one guy, you know, had a tryout with the Carolina Panthers. Another guy had a tryout with the Browns, you know. This guy played Division I tennis. You know, this guy worked his way up and started out with this team and then went to that team and, you know, started out as a tire mechanic or, you know, whatever. You know, we found out all these things because we've interviewed them. We learned about them. TV, you get 9 to 10 seconds of them, and then you judge them based on what happens in that 10 seconds. So it's kind of rough on that end of it because, and that's usually, I guess, where I come from, like being on the soapbox every week, because I'm kind of like defending them because I know them a little better. And I don't know them personally per se, but I know them a little better from listening to them, talking to them. And then the athletic side of me also, you know, believes in that athletes are going to try to do things to get better, and they're trying to, you know, that they will make mistakes. So, you know, but, you know, like I said, this week was some stability and onward and upward Talladega wise, you know, next week, but there's some fun stuff to talk about this weekend, at least for a couple minutes.
Yeah, for sure. The goal remains the same, and things kicked off again with some practice and qualifying at Kansas, and they did get that in for the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. There's a major storm front, and actually this might be part of the weekend story. Major storm front moved through the Kansas City area, and temperatures plummeted from I think the 80s-ish all the way down into the 40s by Saturday and then Sunday morning. So that was definitely a big weather swing going into the weekend. But we did get practice and qualifying in for Cup.
Yeah, and you know, and Sunday it warmed up to like 75, 80. So really, like Saturday and Sunday practice qualifying into the race were 2 different days too for weather. So Ryan's going to go out in Group 2 on this practice on Saturday. But in Group 1, the Fast 5 guys were the 20, the 48, the 4, the 67, and the 47. So Group 2, Ryan and Tim discussed what the 20 was doing in the first practice. That was an interesting thing. The 20 ended up being in that first group. So he's one guy to look out for, see what kind of line he's running, things like that. Early on, the 23 goes to P1 for a single lap. Ryan's single lap ends up like 9th or 10th overall. And 10 laps in, they kind of bobbled a little bit in 3 and 4. So that's something that'll kind of screw up those 5 and 10 and 15 lap averages too when you do that. But, you know, as the session goes, the single lap top 5 guys end up being the 45, the 23, the 11, the 19, and the 54, which is all the Toyotas. But Ryan's like 25 lap average is P6, which is not bad. Like I said, once again, you know, the weather's going to change over the day too. So I was kind of optimistic that might be the difference. They may have been planning on what it's going to be like when it's a little hotter, a little slicker. But the top guy for 25 lap average was the 20 car, and he was in the first session. So Ryan brings it in after 39 laps here with about 2-3 minutes to go here. They also point out on TV the right front on the 22 was torn to shreds from his 35-40 laps that he ran. So for qualifying, Ryan goes out second to last, and about 26 guys in, the 7 went to P1, and that was impressive. and then he got beat out basically by the 17 right afterward. And then, a couple of guys later, the 77 gets up there. And then we got the 19 going to P1. And you go, well, there's a guy who knows how to get to the pole. The 11 goes P1 with 4 to go. Then the 45 goes P1 right before Ryan goes out. And Ryan says he was a little tight at both ends. He ends up P9, which is 0.089 back. So it's less than a tenth of a second. And that's really tight for, being ninth. The top 10 guys are all within a tenth of each other in a single lap. So Sunday we get to stages of 80, 165, 267 here, 9 sets of tires, pit stall 28. And this has an opening in front of them and the 8 behind them. And to the rear ends up being the 22 and the 4. And the initial start here in the low lane, the 5th row, the 45 actually took the bottom for the initial start, which was a little bit, I kind of surprised. I thought he would have taken the high lane. 4 wide, bottom of 4 there through 3 and 4, but it pops all the way out to P7 on the other side of it. So pretty cool that they've gotten themselves a little bit advanced right off the bat. At lap 8 here, the 11 took the lead. Lap 10 here, it's 1 second back of P6, which is the 54. But he's like a tenth faster than him too, so he might catch him soon. At lap 30 here, the 23 passes us back to P8, and the leader is now in lap traffic. And we're about 10 seconds back of that leader, being the 11 car. Now, lap 33 is when the green flag cycle starts. At lap 35, P5 is the pitting continues. Now, like I said, we're P8 at this point, and then we get up to, like I said, up to P5 here, and then we're pitting, and literally he was having trouble with the tire to begin with. So first off, he may have been a little slow coming to pit road just based on the tire. Thought maybe it was coming apart.
Yeah, he kind of radioed in, "I have a problem. I'm coming to you." And
I'm coming to you. Yeah,
that was a little scary because they've had a history at tracks like this where they have blown tires out early in a race and kind of ended things that way. So
yeah, so that's the first part of this that gets a little crazy. Then we get the pit stop, and it's a 9.536 stop. And as he goes to leave, 2, 3, 4. So it's opening in front of him, and I think it's the 10's pit stall after that, and then the 16's pit stall. Correct? I don't think there was anybody else in between.
Opening 43, 10, 16.
Oh, it was 43 was in there? Okay, yeah, we're opening 43, 10, 16. So basically 3 to 4 stalls ahead was the 16. He's told that that's outside. The problem is, like we talked about this in a text or two, it's hard because the camera is lined up for what's kind of straight behind you, and the 16's coming from your right rear. I'm not sure how well you can see that in the mirrors. He is told, though, that there's outside. But Ryan pulls out, and I believe that the 16 also thought, I can shoot this and make it, because the 16's view is everything is in front of him. He can see the 12 coming out of his box, but he can also see his box and where he has to hit. And Ryan catches his left rear with the right front of the car and spins the 16. Luckily, it wasn't worse than it was, actually. It could have been way worse, especially if he hit him in a different area, and he could have spun the 16 into some people too. And luckily that didn't happen. So as we get back on track, and we get to like lap 39, P16, lap 41, P13, lap 43, P12. And at that point, I believe the cycle's completed. So they lost a couple spots with all this, but we're still, possibility of a top 10 kind of car, except we don't really know what kind of damage until the end of the stage here. So Jonathan does tell him that that right front was starting to come apart. At lap 50 here, we are, P12, but about 16 seconds back on the leader, who's the 11. Lap 53 here, we pass the 60 to get to P11. And then at lap 61, the 77 passes us. We're in 12th again. And then it's just starts now that the aero problems that they're having now start to, kind of pull him backwards. Lap 66, the 67 passes, we're in 13th. The lap 71, the 6 passes, we're in 14th. And Tim says something about having to work on the splitter at this point. So they finally got a good chance to look at the pictures. They can tell where the damage is. It's the splitter on the front right side, as we see it during the next cycle here. Lap 75 here, the 35 passes back to 15th. Lap 80 here, the 11 wins the stage, and Ryan's going to be 15th. Now, I took note there were only 21 cars in the lead lap at this point. So this is my optimism at this point before what we actually see happening and what they start talking about here, is that, well, great. If they can fix it, and they'll be 21st, 22nd, they'll be back, and so they'll be 8, 10 rows back, and they'll have a chance to maybe work their way back to the top 10. But Jonathan says there's splitter damage. So they're going to fix the damage first and then come back around and pit the car. And they do that. They don't leave when we're done with the tires. They're going to do more tape. So the second time around, and they go out for two extra laps, basically, to catch back up to the field, and then they come back in. They pit the car. Those guys jump back over the wall. And Raymond and his guys come back out, and they start working on that front end heavily, and they're taping it. And
so I want to say, and we're going to have, I think, after we're done with the recap, a discussion about Penske's overall speed at these types of tracks and some statistics and things. But I tried to, again, we try to put information out there. So we've been listening to the radio. You hear Timmy come on and say, because Ryan's, I don't want to say complaining, he's telling them what's going wrong with the car, and he's telling him you have splitter damage. They confirm it. They're telling him they're going to repair the car and all of that. I tried to explain that to everybody, that when he got in that incident on pit road, and the spin, the damage is, even though it might not look terrible on TV, especially when it's a splitter, which is that thin strip at the bottom of the nose down there, that on these types of tracks might be the most important piece on the entire car.
Yeah.
And once you damage that, you can't really replace it. They can try to tape it. If there's a hole in it, they can try to patch it up the best that they can. But your car is not going to handle the same way the rest of the race. So I already had that gut feeling at that point that things were going to be over the rest of the day. And it was unfortunate because it was so early on in this race. And like you said, they did pit from 8th when the cycle started. So they were running within the top 10. You had a teammate in Austin Cindric that we'll see throughout the rest of this race, pretty much had top 10 to 12 speed the whole race long. Logano, again, we'll talk about it later. Whatever happened to him, totally an outlier. But I already kind of knew at that point, and immediately, I mean, that's just how social media is. People are. I'm trying to explain that. Most of the people understand it. Half the other people said the damage had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yes.
Tyler Reddick won a race without a fender. And it's I could go into telling you why that actually was advantageous for him aerodynamically, but Tyler Reddick also still had his front end and splitter on the car when that happened. So.
Tell me you didn't watch the race without telling me you didn't watch the race. I got a lot of that yesterday with the pit crew was horrible, and it's like
the amount of the pit crew ruined the race stuff. But and we've run into this before, and I've talked to you about it. Again, I'm not like talking down to anybody, but I forget to realize sometimes when people say pit crew, they're using it as a much wider definition.
Broader
they're
term.
Including everybody, the spotter, the crew chief, everybody is in that. So some of them tried to explain that to me when I said, really, the pit crew drove the car into the other car? I mean, like, no, I mean it was the spotter, or no, I mean the crew chief should have done this or that. Like,
Yeah. So
I mean, again, I always tell people, like, I get it. Sometimes you gotta like just let that out in the moment, and then. But I'm okay with that. And then if you move on and then you cool down a little bit and then see things a little bit more clearly. But
what's funny is
what it is. But again, it was very disappointing what happened, because I just knew from that point on it was going to be a struggle, and I didn't get the 10 runner out. So I'm glad you had a few for me.
I'm going to refill here in a minute. So some of these, one thing that's interesting that happens here that people don't realize is they get penalized for too many men over the wall. And I'm watching through the camera, and you see, if you know Raymond, you know what he looks like coming over the wall, around the wall, because they were near the opening, so a couple guys could come right around the end of it, and they got to penalize for that. And the bad part about that is when you restart, it's tailing on the longest line. So anybody who's a lap down is now between you, and you've got to get past those guys just to get the guys you're racing for position with. And so they're restarting at lap 88 from P23 here, with the 11 leading. Now, early on, does pass the 41 and get to 22nd, passes the 47, get to 21st. And then, he's trying to get around lap traffic here. The 108 at lap 108 finally gets around the 22, who's a lap down. At lap 111, passing the 7 to get to 20th. And then at lap 120, we start this green flag cycle. And immediately, like a bunch of guys drop down to pit road. But Ryan is, moves like to 14th. At lap 122, he gets to 10th. At lap 124, he's all the way to 4th. At lap 125, he's P2. And the 77 had stayed out to that point too. And so he's about 10 seconds back of the 77. But next lap, they go ahead and pit. 9.356 stop, right? Comes out P21, a lap down. Now, he pitted a little later than those guys, but these tires were pretty equaled out pretty quickly. There wasn't a lot of advantage for any long period of time. So like gaining on the leader or trying to get your lap back was really hard to do. And he's really right behind the 5 early on, but the lucky dog position. But now it's a matter of once the lucky dog passes somebody, or once the 5 passes somebody, it's a new lucky dog, and you got to get to that guy. So at lap 155 here, the 7 becomes the lucky dog. And Ryan is about 4 to 5 seconds back of that. And like I said, running the same lap times as some of the top guys in the top 5. At lap 165 here, the 5 wins stage 2, but Ryan's P21, a lap down. And Ryan says the whole car is out of the track. So he doesn't, and this is, I think, some people used on social media where he said he didn't know what to tell them. And it's really just partially frustration, but partially like the handling has gone away. So, it's kind of, going to be hard here. They pit the second time by 9.556, another pretty good stop here. Restarting at lap 173 here, P21, first car lap down. So now you're thinking, okay, well, if we can hurry up and get a caution here, we get that lap back, right? We haven't seen a caution yet, natural caution, through the first 2 stages. The 4 car gets in the way, and he's 2 down. And he jams it in the middle and almost causes Ryan to wreck. There's like a hesitation thing right in front of Ryan. Ryan has to back off. All the momentum from the restart's gone at that point. At that point, P22 and now the 47 is the lucky dog because of that. And the 20 is leading. And lap 177 here, the 42 and the 43 pass. We're back to 24th at lap 181. Past the 43 to get to 23rd. Lap 187, we passed the 42 to get 22nd. We're better than those cars, but because of the way that melee happened on the restart. At lap 189 here, the 42 does get by, and Ryan kind of hits the wall going into 1 a little bit here too. He's doored it over at the 42 for a bunch of laps. At lap 198, the 43 passes back to 24th. Lap 214 here, green flag cycle starts now. At lap 223 pitting, a 9.776. Mind you, these times are all via the NASCAR app. Bozy doesn't adjust the time, and a couple of them are probably in the 8-second range. The 11's the lead here. Ryan, P27 here, 2 laps down at this point once the cycle is completed. At lap 231 here, passing the 1 to get to 26. At lap 258 here, the 45 is leading at that point. And then we get this caution at lap 265 for the 51. I don't even know what to say about Rick Ware racing anymore.
Like old times, right? What was it? Was it like 2018 all over again or whatever?
Remember there was a race at Charlotte where I think it was a 600 where he had 2 cars out there, Rick Ware did, and they hit each other and caused a caution. It's almost like anymore, I don't know what they're doing, why they're. I mean, somebody Denny is actually the guy who kind of like made a statement about how could he wreck? They were going that slow or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how you wreck if you're going that speed, I think is what he said. And there's a lot of discourse on social media about this, and I thought it was interesting. You had the spotter of the 51 kind of come to the driver's defense. So they kind of clarified the fact, and then Tommy Baldwin on Door Bumper Clear. I didn't listen to it. I did see just the clip of that part where he explained he takes the fall for it. Yeah. But apparently the 51 was out there on 60 plus lap tires, which was the very end of a run on those before basically they fall apart. So that information comes out, and then Denny's next thought was, well, yeah, you stay out there on those tires, they're gonna blow up eventually. Yeah. And the spotter came back again and explained a little bit further. And Denny has said since, and I think he even said on his own podcast today, that he doesn't blame Cody Ware. He feels like Cody Ware was just put in a bad situation.
Yeah, situation. It wasn't, but it's definitely the team, right? I mean, and I think that's what Tommy was saying. They should have put tires on it at some point. It's so strange, like when these teams try to put together a strategy that they think is going to help them get a better finish, and all it really does is make the finish worse. That sometimes I don't understand. Like when they get, we're gaining 5 spots by doing this, and then when the restart happens, they lose 10 spots. It's like, did you really think you were going to gain that 5 spots? I don't think. His
explanation was they were several laps down, but there were other people on their lap, and so they were trying to stretch to gain those positions on those guys. So he called it a gamble that they were trying to go for, and he says I should have pitted him for tires and known better. So, but in the end, Denny ended up saying like, yeah, actually I have a lot of respect for Cody. I feel like at the end of these races he does move over normally. Again, he said I think it was more on the team putting him in a bad spot. So, but it felt like old times. And this is, you mentioned no natural cautions this entire race long
until that
it happens right in the middle of a dramatic sequence here. Because I mean, I know you're going through here, but in this race to the finish, Denny was leading. Tyler Reddick. So this has been a relatively boring race the whole way until this last run here, because there was different pit strategies. So that can make races like this interesting. Denny short pits to get the lead. Tyler Reddick pits when he normally would have pitted, and he's 3-4 seconds back, and we're just watching him slowly gain track position, cut that lead down all the way until he passes them. And then it seems like, well, here we go again. 5th win for Tyler Reddick. What a surprise. And then he radios in, I'm out of fuel.
Yeah.
He says he flipped his reserve switch during that sequence. He hits the wall. Denny repasses him again. So Denny's back in the lead again, thinks I'm cruising to the win. And then that's when this caution comes out. Yeah.
So, Ryan takes a wave around actually on this. He gets from 2 laps down to 1 lap down. And the green-white checkered happens, and the 45, the melee of the 2 laps of the green-white checker was wild because the 20 gets kind of put in the wall. The 5 takes the lead. He loses the lead. It just it gets really crazy. Good crazy finish. I guess it's what you get when you get a green-white checker. Ryan ends up literally passing the 41 for a position in the last 2 laps.
So you may have said it, but we took the wave.
Yeah, took the wave. Yeah, so got from 2 laps to 1 lap down, and who knows? At that point it helped because he got past another car. So, like I said, he ends up finishing 24th, and not the day that they were hoping for. And a lot of people are like, well, you're going to talk about in a minute about after we talk about the points and everything about the speed and so forth of the program, but I think they were a top 10 car that possibly could have been a top 5 car by the end of the day if they didn't have those issues.
Yeah, so the point situation is really the really, really, really unfortunate part about this. And I felt like last week that was like our silver lining. That was the fact that Ryan got really great stage points and finished second and had cut Reddick's lead down. So 2 weeks ago, it was at an 82-point lead Reddick had over Ryan. After the Bristol race, it was down to 62. Like, all right, he cut a big chunk out of this. Well, Ryan got no stage points in stage 1. He got no stage points in stage 2, and he finishes 24th. One spot better than he was going to finish without that caution that comes out. Reddick wins his 5th race of the year. Again, they get 15 more points than everybody else on the field for wins this year. So while wins don't lock you into the chase anymore, they do still mean a lot. And if you look at the top 6 in points right now, they are the 6 drivers that have all won races plus Kyle Larson. So there's only one outlier in that top part of the leaderboard there that hasn't won a race. So winning still very, very much so means a lot. So with all of that, Ryan falls a position in the point standings from 2nd to 3rd now, and he is 120 points out from 1st. So within one race, and again, we brought this up last week, or Ryan making the analogy that, when you have a bad race, you take an elevator down, and it's like a mountain to climb back up. So drops 58 points on the weekend because of what the circumstances of what happened. So Tyler Reddick is the leader now. Again, he is 105 points in front of the new 2nd place driver, which is Denny Hamlin. Ty Gibbs is in 4th. Larson moved up the spot to 5th, still winless. Chase Elliott is in 6th. William Byron, who got saved, I think, by that last caution. I think he threw on some tires and made up like 8 spots or something, because he had a very mediocre day going. Ended up finishing in the top 10. He's 7th overall. Bubba Wallace is 8th. Brad Keselowski is 9th in points. Christopher Bell, in that restart at the end there, gets fenced a little bit by the 45, breaks a toe link, and actually spins out down onto pit road, and they didn't throw a caution for this in the closing laps. So he ended up finishing last car in the lead lap. He drops a spot to the standings. Buscher is 11th. Hocevar is 12th. Priest 13th. Teammate Joey Logano, who was on the upswing, had just an awful, awful day. 14th overall now. He dropped 2 positions. Chase Briscoe has now made his way into the chase standings in the 15th position. Daniel Suarez is still holding on in 16th. So on the outside looking in, teammate Austin Cindric, who has quietly been having an okay year. I wouldn't say it's great, but as far as the speed goes at Penske right now, it's the 12, the 2, then the 22, then the 21. So Cindric moves up a spot to 17th. So he's just outside that top 16 cutoff. Shane Van Gisbergen has now fallen out, I think, for the first time or maybe the second time out of the top 16. He's in 18th. So other notable still outside. Chastain in 20th. Allmendinger in 21st. Eric Jones in 24th. Kyle Busch, I believe they had brake issues this week. He ended up finishing laps down. He's 27th overall in the standings. So still lots of big names on the outside looking in, but some of those guys that had bad starts, even Logano, has still managed his way to get back up into the chase standings, but Chase Briscoe has moved up in. He was another one. He took 4 tires on that final restart and went from the back half of the top 10 or even a little bit further back all the way to 3rd. So that was a great call by that team. So the biggest hit they took this week was in the points. 58 points lost on the week because of Tyler Reddick winning the race. So that was unfortunate. So I did want to talk to you about, and I always say you're a tick or two more positive than me, when that's okay. we need to balance each other out. But what is your overall feeling on the speed that Team Penske brought this weekend, but also just the 1.5 mile program overall? I'll mention, I heard Denny Hamlin say that he started practice right behind the Penske cars, and he said he knew within the first 3 laps that he's like, oh boy, they're going to be in trouble. Because he said he just blew past them, like after everyone had already gotten up to speed.
Well,
we didn't get to see the full extent of what Ryan was going to be able to do. They pitted from 8th in that cycle, so he had a top 10 car and wasn't bleeding spots.
I'd like to know who
running okay. The 22 was totally gone, though.
I'd like to know who Denny got behind, because it wasn't Ryan. Nobody blew by Ryan. Maybe the 22.
The 2 and 22. He said he passed immediately. So
so that's the difference, and I've said this, I think in the Discord chat, and I said this to you, there's Ryan, there's Penske, and the other Fords. Sometimes the other Fords are a little better than Penske.
Sometimes it's Ryan, RFK,
okay,
the rest of Penske, and then front row and the rest.
But it's Ryan first. Everybody's like the Penske this and the Penske that, and they do this on the teardown all the time. Jordan does this all the time, where he says that except for, he always has to say except for, because there's something different about Ryan. And last week, Joey Logano did that thing for NASCAR with what do they call that? NASCAR. I don't even know what they called that, but he did that thing where he was talking about Ryan, and Ryan, how he was driving at at these different tracks, and Ryan does something at Bristol different than other guys, right? And Ryan does something different than both Joey and Austin. And I think Austin is trying to emulate it a little bit more. I think Austin is trying to add that to his repertoire, but you still don't have it, the way Ryan has it. There's something about the way he feels in the seat, and that way he feels the car, and he's faster, and he helps the car be faster. So I still think that they were a top 5 car if they had a chance to adjust it a little bit and work on it a little bit and stay in the top 10 and work their way forward on a restart or two and get strung out and run. Because that's the other thing. Once Ryan runs laps, and we're 20 laps into a cycle and 25 laps into a cycle, what always happens? Consistent laps, better laps, starts to catch guys. He's not as heavy at wearing out the tires. That's a lot of times why they start with lower air pressures for him sometimes, because he doesn't wear tires out as fast as other guys do. So just all those things make me optimistic no matter what track they go to, whether it's a mile and a half or not. Now, statistically, you'll probably point out a bunch of statistics that show bad results at some of these places, and partially it's because they've had so many issues. The finishes haven't been there, and the issues are more mechanical than they are the driver. So blowing an engine, or blowing a tire, or so forth. So that's the only thing that's the downside of it when you look at the actual numbers and statistics you look at, is it weighs them down and doesn't give you the finishes like they have at Phoenix per se. But overall, I think it's Ryan and then the other Ford drivers.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with that at all. I felt like they didn't have anywhere close to winning speed at Kansas on Sunday.
No,
I feel like you said, if they had a chance, but the problem here is they never had a chance to work on the car at its peak, at its best. They got the damage way too early in the race, and they were pretty much toast after that. So I think with the opportunity to work on the car, he could have found a way. He could have found a Ryan Blaney way to finish 5th. If they were basically just going to be stuck where they were at, he's probably going to finish 9th or 10th. I think what we saw with Cindric is what maybe that would have been. Because I say with like Cindric, you have to consider where he's at. You have to consider Ryan's abilities that automatically give him a handful more spots than where Austin's probably going to finish. So Austin ran top 10 and then slid back a little bit by the end of the race, but still finished within the top 15. So I feel like just on that speed alone, that's probably where Ryan could have been at worst without any issues happening. So we don't even know. We never even got the opportunity to see him and Jonathan and the engineers kind of work on some adjustments to that car that maybe could have resulted in a better finish in the end. So we'll bring up the stats. So just for fun, yesterday, I'm looking up a couple of different stats websites, and one of them that's good for finding like averages and things at different types of tracks is like driveraverages.com or something like that. So I looked at just the intermediate tab. So if you look at just intermediates for Ryan Blaney, and the way they define an intermediate, though, they add in some other tracks that I pulled out of these stats. So if you look at that tab, it includes Darlington, Nashville, Charlotte, Kansas, Texas, Las Vegas, Homestead. So for me, when we're looking at Kansas and these types of tracks specifically, I narrowed it down to just Las Vegas, Texas, Kansas, Charlotte. What I would call a traditional 1.5 mile intermediate track. In the next gen era, Ryan has 26 starts at those tracks. He has a 19.15 average finish. So when people are talking about, and the reason I wanted to look this up too, is just to see, because the problem we're going to have is in the playoffs, there's a stretch where I don't have the order exact, but it's like Charlotte, Kansas, Vegas, or Vegas. It's in that order, but those three are right in a row. And in this system, unlike the playoff system where there's eliminations and resets, if you have 19th place average, if you have a 19th place average across those three races in the chase, your championship is done.
Yeah.
So they can't have that. Again, I think there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that have led to that average finish, but I just got curious. So I pulled the stats for just those 4 tracks. So 26 starts, 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s. So that's okay. That's but not really good. Lots of starts or lots of finishes here, 30th or worse. We'll go back to 2022. Vegas in 2022, 36. Charlotte in 2022, 29th. The fall race in Vegas, 28th. 2023, 28th at Texas. Texas again in 24, 33rd. Charlotte in 24, 39th. Vegas in 24, 32nd. Vegas in 25, 35th. Charlotte in 2025, 38th. Vegas in 2025, second Vegas, 38th.
Yeah.
What I said, so that's going to kind of skew the numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always necessarily, I don't think, a total speed issue, because again, I think they bring top 10, top 15 at complete war speed to these tracks. There's definitely room for overall improvement, especially across the whole organization. But what you're seeing here is catastrophic incidents that are dragging down that average across those three. And to me, though, I mean, that doesn't make me feel any better because I don't really believe a lot in luck. But when you're staring at what's happened in the past, and a lot of that win. So he won the Coca-Cola 600 in 2023 when they unloaded fast. They were fast basically the entire race long. But since then, outside of Texas, he's had some pretty good speed at Texas out of the gate. A lot of those other races where he has good finishes, they've had to work on the car a little bit to get there. So they can get there, but we haven't seen what we've seen the rest of 2026, which is almost a winning car every single week. So do you think this is a situation where Team Penske, they're so good at basically at everything 1.5 mile and under 1.4 and under, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
They are almost the best at most of those places. So do you think it's just a situation where a race team just can't be elite across the board, or that's rare?
I think what's happened is, and especially in the last year or two, one program or one manufacturer found something, and the other ones are playing catch up at those style tracks. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? We've watched them in practice and in qualifying do it constantly in the last year or two, and that's the Toyotas. And it's, the 2311 program and the Joe Gibbs program, and it's always those 6-7 guys, and they're always up, in the top 20 to start the race, top 10 to start the race, and then you're battling them the rest of the race. So they're the ones, and until everybody else catches up with them, it's going to just look like you're slow, but you're not slow. You're just having somebody who's having an exceptional run of whatever they found. So now the trick is to find what they found or found another way to get there, and that's all it really comes down to.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I've said this several times on this show and in our Discord, like NASCAR, I mean, I've been watching forever, but I've been watching for more than 20 years. The sport is so cyclical. It's either a team hits on something, a manufacturer hits on something, everybody else catches up, and the cycle starts over and over again. Mm-hmm. What I've said is, yes, Toyota, especially 2311 in the 45 car, have hit on something this year. All we can hope for and push our positivity that direction is that Ford is the next one to pick up on something, because if Chevy and Hendrick does, we're going to be in trouble for a while. but we've seen years where Hendrick Motorsports has had down years. Prior to, I think, even around the time Chase Elliott even won his championship, like things weren't great for Hendrick Motorsports. And then it picked up again. Kyle Larson came in and won 10 races, and like it started the cycle again, and we've seen this. Does Ford have the numbers to hit on something like but the Toyotas did? I feel like with Toyota in some cases, I feel like they might have the funding advantage out of a lot of people. Hendrick Motorsports, I think, has the numbers, and Chevrolet has the numbers to find things. But do you buy into that idea too, that Ford has shrunk? I mean, they're no presence at all in the O'Reilly Auto Parts series. They're launching this new Formula One program. They've lost numbers and cars in the Cup Series as it goes. Like, is that concerning to you at all?
I don't know, because for as much as we just talked about the Toyotas and the 1.5 mile, everybody else wishes they were a Penske car when they get to the short track, right? In the last 2-3 years, what's been the biggest complaint about the last couple of rounds of the playoffs, right? Well, you get to Martinsville and you get to Phoenix, and you got to look at a Penske car, and then Penske got a chance to win. Penske wins 3 years in a row, right? Because they went to Martinsville and they went to Phoenix, and they're better than everybody else. Hell, it made it so they changed where the championship race is or where the final race is now, because they were just like, we have to do something to change. It partially was part of what probably got rid of the playoff format, is because they were tired of like teams that gamed the system, and mainly Penske figured out by the last 2-3 weeks of the season, that's when you got to be at the best, and those are those 2 or 3 tracks, and we're going to be the best ones there. So, there are teams right now that wish they were Penske when they go to Martinsville or Phoenix, right? And they go to those tracks, 4 times a year. So, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and that's why they race at, 20 some different tracks and 36 races. So I would love for them to dominate all the different disciplines all the time, but I don't see that that's always possible. And when you don't dominate one of them, hopefully you run well enough that maybe have a chance at the end. Just like yesterday, truthfully, that caution happens, and let's say, Cindric took 2 tires, okay? But let's say he took 4 and weaseled his way up through there. Now, all of a sudden, then you've got a Ford winning the race, right? He took 4 tires, took advantage of a situation, not because he was the best car on the day. The same as what happened at Bristol. The best car didn't win that day, but we had a caution at the end of the race and another caution at the end of the race, and we had a couple restarts. And sure, it was probably the 3rd or 2nd best car on the day at that point, but it wasn't the best car on the day. So just keep yourself in the ball game for those situations, and then at the other tracks that you can dominate. But they do a pretty good job of both, I think. At least Ryan does. The Ford program overall, that's on the individual, the individual things. Penske right now, I don't know what's going on at the 22 car these last couple weeks. Something over there has to change, because there's same equipment that Ryan has, right? And Ryan is where in the standings, right? I mean, 2nd, 3rd in the standings every week. So, pick it up, pick up the ball and run with it.
Yeah, Ryan ends up finishing 1 lap down in 24th with a damaged race car in Logano, which I know I think they may have made some mechanical adjustments after practice, but 30th or something, multiple laps down, and steering rack or something.
Steering rack.
So, I don't know what's going on there. He has only been good at the short tracks for sure this year, and just completely terrible everywhere else. So don't know what's going on there. The 2 cars showing a little bit of promise, and we'll have to see where things go from there. But really interesting conversation. Thanks for working through all those talking points with me, because I know that's what a lot of people have been discussing kind of already this week and within the last few weeks for sure. So again, Ryan Blaney finishes 24th. Disappointing day overall in the race at Kansas Speedway. He falls to 3rd overall in the point standings, now 120 points back of the leader, Tyler Reddick, who just picked up his 5th victory on the season in the NASCAR Cup Series. So we have one more thing to wrap up when it comes to the weekend at Kansas Speedway, and that is the results from the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And while it was an amazing week for me, I still feel like I still can't really celebrate here, and I'll talk to you why here in a minute. My starting lineup and I believe this. No, it was not. I did make one garage move. So, starting lineup: Kyle Larson got me 54 points. Chase Briscoe got me 38 points. Tyler Reddick got me 71 points on the day.
Wow.
Denny Hamlin 52, Bubba Wallace 39, and Carson Hocevar in the garage where he ended up 28th. I originally had Hocevar up in the starting lineup and Hamlin in the garage, but once Hamlin was clearly dominating the early stages of the race, I made that swap. Featured matchups, I picked Bubba Wallace over Ty Gibbs. That was right. I picked Chase Elliott over Chastain. That was right. I picked Reddick over Larson. That was right. Only one I got wrong here was Blaney. I picked over Byron. So 3 out of the 4 on the featured matchups. Really great starting lineup. 284 points on the weekend. Tied for first. I should be happy because when I normally finish in the 30s, but I'm like, really, I couldn't just get one more point. Kyle Larson, if you would have finished just one more, if you would have bled like one fewer spot or something, like I could have won it outright, but it's okay. It was a great weekend for me. I should not complain. I think this is only the second or third time I've even been in the top 10 this year. The last time I think I finished second or something. So I should be happy that I did end up at least tying for first. So great weekend for me on the fantasy lineup. Thankful that I did make that swap there with Carson Hocevar, or potential I would have probably wouldn't have even finished in the top 10 because I would have lost about 20 points. So kudos to me. Who did you have in your starting line?
So I had Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe for 38 points, Kyle Larson for 54, Ty Gibbs for 38 points, and then Denny Hamlin for 52 points. I had the same 3 correct in the pick'em. I missed one of them. Once again, it was Ryan, because that would have been 10 more points if I'd have had him. But overall, 283 points, good enough for third this week.
And it's a deceiving third because you're in a 3-way tie for third and you're only 1 point out of first. So yeah, that's just how that works out. So same thing for you. Like if you just had one guy finish one position or 2 positions higher, you could have won the weekend overall. So that was the first thing you kind of said to me after the race was over. You're like, yeah, Ryan had a bad day, but our fantasy lineups did pretty good. So, which isn't new for you, it's new for me. So let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned this past weekend at Kansas Speedway in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And there are lots of ties as we go through here. So it actually kicks off with a 3-way tie for 9th with our friend Joe Bro, 1221, Charlie, AB00, and Blaney Kicks Beep with 275 points, all tied for 9th. Ryan's Hope was in 7th with 276 points. It was also a tie with Char 12 Fan, 276 as well. And 6th was Alyssa C, 278 points on the weekend. As you mentioned, your team, Mez 12, Matt O, and Blaney or Bust, all tied for 3rd with 283 points. And Team Blaney host Adam, that's me, and Joe Lopez won the weekend, tied for first, 284 points. Now let's take a look at the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. I've vaulted up from the 30s, just barely into the 20s. 28th overall, 1,938 points. Let's take a look. Mez 12, 25th overall, 1,945 points. You were up in the top 10 for, I think, a decent period of time early in the season, and then kind of slipped a little bit. So, but you're making your way. You're making your way back up again. So top 10 overall, Char 12 Fan in 10th, 2,002 points. AP 2662 in 9th, 2,009 points. Go 12 Go is in 8th, 2,028 points. Jerry RF Blaney Fan is in 7th, 2,029 points. Pesky Blaney Fan is in 6th, 2,039 points. The Buckeye Bullet is in 5th, 2,051 points. Factory of Sadness 6 is in 4th, 2,073 points. With 2,080 points in 3rd, you have Fike 21. Blaney or Bust is in 2nd at 2,091 and still holding down the lead in the overall standings. 0 Schlitz Given, 2,098 points. So they've got a 7-point lead over second place. And that brings us now to the race weekend. Superspeedway racing at Talladega Superspeedway in Alabama. Things for the Cup Series kickoff on Saturday, April 25th, with qualifying only, no practice. Qualifying only, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can watch that streaming on Prime, listen to it on MRN SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. You might want to tune in to the ARCA Menard Series race at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Alabama Manufactured Housing 200 on streaming on Fox 1, FS1 on cable, MRN SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. I believe that's another race that Cletus will be in. I believe his good pal Squirrel was also cleared to run in this race, and he actually had a decent run this past week at Kansas. Cletus did it well. He was running inside the top 10 when his engine expired. Another save of his life as he was dropping all of his oil onto the track. So he's still learning. They also announced today that he's going to run the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race at Nashville for RC. Nice. So while people thought maybe that he was going to take a step back and just focus on ARCA for a little bit, surprise, already jumping right back into car for RCR. So again, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the ARCA Menard Series race from Talladega. You can watch that on cable on FS1. 4 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the Ag Pro 300 for the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. As always, it's on the CW network, broadcast TV, MRN, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio on the radio. All of that is happening on Saturday. Then Sunday, April 26th, you have the Jack Links 500 from Talladega Superspeedway, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, streaming on Fox 1. And for the second week in a row, it's on the big Fox network, the main network, Fox. HBO Max for the in-car cameras, MRN, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio on the radio. Ryan Blaney, who is a Talladega Superspeedway Walk of Famer, has made 23 starts at the track in Alabama, 293 laps led, average start 11.7, average finish of 17.1. That's going to be skewed on these super speedways. I think he has somewhere around 6 DNFs between crashes and 1 engine failure that dates back to 2015. 3 wins, 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s. So in the grand scheme of things, fantastic racetrack for Ryan Blaney. Those 3 victories, all thrilling for a variety of different reasons. The first couple, some carnage there at the end. The third one with an amazing move down the back stretch to win the race. Still would have won the race even if he finished second because the 4-car with his now current spotter, Timmy Fedewa, and Kevin Harvick were disqualified after the race with their car. They finished second to Ryan in that race. So that was exciting. That came during that amazing championship run they had in 2023 down the stretch through the playoffs. So it's been 3 years. Can Ryan Blaney go back to victory lane at Talladega Super Speedway? And then we have some things to talk about when it comes to stages. But but what do you feel like? I said to you, I was like, after the race last week, Talladega is not the place I wanted to go to after they had a race where they bled 58 points because things can be so volatile. You can be taken out by things that are completely out of your control. I was like, why can't they be going to like Gateway or New Hampshire or Pocono, like somewhere where I know they can get stage points and contend for the victory on their own merit. And instead, you got to go to Talladega.
I'm okay with it. Each week is just you play with what you hand you're dealt. So I'm okay with where they're going. Really, really interested to see and find out what's going to happen with this change in the stages, especially since the second and third stage are going to be shortened to 45 laps each, and that part of those stages is under caution from the end of the previous stage. So you're only looking at 40 laps each, maybe 41 laps each. And I guess we'll bring it up now. I already thought about this, and I guarantee you that the teams have already figured this out. I know that the smart crew chiefs already figured this out with their engineers. These last 2 stages of the day, guys, look out, because you may see some real interesting things happen at the end of stage 1, at the end of stage 2. The start-finish line at Talladega is all the way down, almost going into turn 1. And the pits close with 2 laps to go in a stage. So you could hit pit road with 2 laps to go before that before the pit road closes. Do a full pit stop. And I say a full pit stop, I mean do 4 tires and do 2 cans of fuel, 13, 14 seconds on pit road. Pack it. Come back out on track, and within those 2 laps, not lose the lead lap. As long as you don't have a penalty, don't do anything wrong, you won't lose the lead lap. And if you do that and only 2 or 3 other guys do that with you, the end of the stage happens. Sure, you're at the back, but then everybody else pits to start the next stage. You cycle to the front, and then you lead the pack for the rest of that next stage, barring something dumb happening to you, or a crash happening. So you could see teams who weren't in contention at the end of stage 1 to get stage points come in and do this to try to get stage points at the end of stage 2. And you could see teams at the end of stage 2 come in and do this to put themselves in contention for the win. Really, really interesting thing to watch. Will some teams try it? I think so. Talking to a couple people in the NASCAR world, and one of the concerns is what happens in stage 1 as far as if there's a caution or something like that, and how that might change everybody's strategy. But if you run it under normal green conditions the whole time, you should be able to pack it full of fuel and still get back out on track at the end of one of those 2 stages, stage 1, end of stage 1 or end of stage 2, and not lose the lead lap. But if you do that, like I said, then you'll cycle to the lead as everybody else comes down pit road after the caution's thrown. So I can't wait to see who tries to pull this off. I can't wait to see who the Mavericks are, who the gamblers are, who are trying to get, like I said, could just be a matter of trying to get some stage points in stage 2. Okay. Or at the end of stage 2, it could be like, we're going to try to win this race, and this is how we're going to do it. So can't wait to see if that happens this Sunday.
Yeah, and the idea by switching up these stages, making the really long stage 1 and the short stage 2 and 3 is to try to stop one of the biggest complaints that's come with the next gen era of super speedway racing is the fuel saving, where they're so focused on running half throttle, especially all the way throughout the back of the pack, not really trying to race, running around 3 wide, where the outside lane, some guys are trying to push it a little bit more than the inside 2 lanes. And they just do that all race long, basically until the last half of the last stage. So this is kind of a Band-Aid to try to fix it a little bit. But NASCAR has already said, we don't expect this to just miraculously fix everything. They said it's just a small step. I think the NASCAR president came out when he was on DBC and confirmed some rumors that they plan to bring back preseason Thunder next year ahead of Daytona, because they want to get cars out on track. They want to get a decent amount of cars out on track, and they want to try and fix the car itself for super speedway racing, because they can even say everybody does stop fuel saving in these last 2 stages, because they don't have to make a pit stop. So they don't have to save fuel if they've packed it in their pit stops between the stages. Denny will tell you that it'll just turn into a parking lot. Because he's one of those guys that used to pull off even when they would run single file, dive down, try to make a pass, get up in front of somebody and make your way to the front. Or even in the 2-line racing, people could dive down. They could have partners go with them. They could make their way to the back to the front within 3 or 4 laps. That doesn't happen in this generation of car anymore. We saw Ryan Blaney win an extremely exciting race at Daytona in the fall. And after it was over and you start analyzing things, you find out that he won from the 3rd lane, getting a huge push from the 99 car all the way up through, made a great move to get the lead. He had to do that to win still. So there had to be a move to be made, but it was a playoff cutoff. And there are some guys that were leading those 2 bottom lanes that the guys behind them didn't want to push into the playoffs.
Right.
So it stalls the lanes out, and then you realize it looked magical. It took a lot of skill to do it still, but is still kind of a manufactured, exciting finish. And that's what we don't want anymore. And hopefully they find something next January, February, whenever they do that test.
Right. Well, first off, stage 2 and stage 3, as long as there's not any cautions, you're going to see 8 to 10 guys get out in a row probably and run that line. And the second line, if it pops out at all, will be, like I said, there'll be 10 to 12 guys back trying to fight their way up. But one lane will probably be better than the other, and that's just the way it'll be until you get to about 4 or 5 to go. And then all of a sudden it'll get dicey because then the guy who's running third decides he doesn't want to run third no more. He wants to try to make a move, or the guy running fourth wants to peek out, and maybe he'll get a push from the guy running fifth if they're teammates. So those are the kind of things that you'll see at the end of the race, hopefully in the third stage. But you're going to see in second and third stage, they're going to run all out, not have to worry about fuel saving. They're not going to be 3 wide. They're going to get 2 lines going probably, but the first line, the line that gets out in the air, will probably push. The testing is the key, because we talked about this before. I think the number one thing they actually have to do is take away handling, right? Take away a little bit of downforce. But you can't do it at a dangerous level, but you have to do enough where the cars wiggle a little bit, where guys have to drive them a little more. And that's one thing. Maybe we go back to pod racing.
Like
tandem racing. Remember tandem racing? People complained about it, but on the other hand, there was actually a lot of racing going on. A lot of, like, 2 guys would push their way to the front and another 2 guys wouldn't, and then they'd swap. And then when they swapped, they'd drop back a little bit. And we never really had the big one when that happened, which was nice. And you hardly had too many, goofy things happen, except for Bodine and Dave at Daytona the one time, where Bodine decided he didn't know how to push. But for the most part, the pod racing was really cool. Dave got to run out front in that Golden Corral car a couple times. But the racing itself was good because these little groups of 2 would come up and then go through, and then it would be 3 wide with those groups doing things and so forth. I wonder if maybe they'll think about that at some point, but I don't know what kind of aero package it would take to get back to that either. That was the thing. It was actually a product of their aero package. So what can you do? Like I said, the only thing you really can do is take away handling somehow, so that these guys have to drive and be a little loose and have to make a move. And when they do get pushed, like I said, not get wrecked, but when they get pushed, they move. They either go forward or they get out of the way, one of the 2.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I have high hopes that they can figure something out. I know they mentioned that they got Ryan and Dale Jr. and I think maybe Denny and like some other drivers in a room at Daytona. And they talked with NASCAR officials and threw some ideas out there. So we'll kind of have to see what happens. But this weekend, it's them just signaling that they see that there's an issue. They're trying to do something to make something happen as far as that goes. And that's the easiest thing they can do right now is mess with stage lengths, because the only other thing that I heard that would be interesting is the other possibility was a mandate. And again, this won't fix the racing on track. But it was a mandate that if you pit, you got to take 4 tires and fuel. So that would just mandate getting more fuel in the car. Again, all that solves is trying to solve the fuel saving, but it's still a car problem that's impacting the racing. So
that's the funny part. I don't know where'd you hear that at?
That's just one of the things that was one of the things he was asked about and kind of mentioned it. So
yeah, I don't know who came up with that idea. That don't work either. 4 tire stop is only 9 some seconds. You're not packing the car for the full fuel.
It's just another Band-Aid. It's like they would have to get some more fuel. They might as well fill up as much as they can until the tires are changed than they would on these 2 tire stops when they just get splashed.
What I'm saying, what ended up happening is you just get out there and you fuel save again, because you didn't pack it full of fuel. They pack it full of fuel on the stage brakes usually. They do the 14-second stops on the stage brakes. So yeah, I don't know if that scenario really works either. I mean, everybody does a 4 tire stop, but they're still going to have to.
I don't like the mandates either, so that's not.
Forcing people to, because teams will find a way around those rules too. Absolutely. Just like this weekend, we're going to see some strategy things that are based on this set of rules, and like I said, the engineers have already figured out some ways around it.
So again, if you want to tune in this weekend for the NASCAR Cup Series at Talladega Superspeedway, things kick off on Saturday, April 25th, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time for qualifying only, no practice. You can stream that on Prime. Sunday, April 26th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You have the Jack Links 500 from Talladega Superspeedway, streaming on Fox 1, on broadcast TV on Fox, HBO Max for the in-car cameras, MRN, SiriusXM, NASCAR, radio on the radio.
You gonna do some Talladega this week on NASCAR 25?
Yes, I got if people wonder if you've seen me live on TikTok, that's my setup behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been streaming usually at least twice a week, doing some NASCAR 25. I'll race whatever track the series is at that weekend. I think the only one this year I won't be able to do is the Naval Base Coronado, because that is not included in last year's version of the game. I've dabbled a little bit too in iRacing. When I just race iRacing on my own, not on a stream, I mainly do dirt racing, so sprint cars and modifieds, and a little bit of asphalt with the Will and Modified Tour and SK Mods and Cars Tour and some things like that. So if you see me on there, most of the time I'll be on NASCAR 25. I have done a little bit of iRacing. I actually picked up my first. I did a stream earlier or during the week last week, and actually won a race on the stream, which for some people is not a big deal, but for me, I've probably only won maybe 10 iRacing lobby races in my whole 5 or so year career on iRacing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Bristol Dirt too, right?
Bristol Dirt, yeah. So that was really interesting. So thanks for everybody. I've had lots of great conversations come up during those streams. I've had lots of interesting people. Yeah. I had a truck series driver drop in that popped in and said, "Hey, tell me where I finished in this race," and had me pause after the race was over and had me scroll through the leaderboard. And he's more of a back marker, up and coming, trying to find funding kind of a guy. And I said, "Well, you finished 35th," and he's like, "Yeah, that's about right." So I've met lots of interesting people, lots of people from Ohio. We had some great conversations about Sharon Speedway. And then always, I mean, my the two biggest stalwarts that are always in our TikTok streams, Chelsea and Justin, they're almost always in there too, giving me some encouragement or some pointers. That's the other thing that I've found is a lot of people that will pop in that are scrolling through TikTok, and they'll watch me, because I am admittedly, I'm learning as we go when we do these streams, because I don't really play these games that much throughout the week outside of the stream. So people have popped in and actually given lots of really great feedback or advice on how to enter a turn or things like that. Now, Talladega is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be this big pack racing, and in the game, the racing's actually pretty good. It doesn't really reflect what happens on the real Cup Series track right now in 2026. So yeah, look for that probably tomorrow night, and then probably Thursday night, I would guess, at least, and maybe Wednesday if I'm motivated. I'll hop on there and I'll do a stream. And normally the stream starts a little bit later, because I take a little bit break between work, and so usually between 9:30 and 10 I'll start the stream, and depending on how things go, how many people are in there, I'm usually on for at least an hour, but I'll go longer if there's more people in the lobby. So, or in
you get the Worth paint scheme? They have the Worth paint scheme in it?
I do have at least last year's version of the Worth paint scheme, so it'll be relatively accurate when we do the stream this week. So it should be. So yes, awesome. Look out for that. Thanks for bringing that up. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, especially those of you that are watching live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. You can always join us live on Monday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time when we record this podcast, but it's also available on replay on YouTube and Facebook, and then also on the audio version you can download and listen to on all of your favorite podcast apps. During the weekend on race day, you can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search for Team Blaney. We'd also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So for my co-host, Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Don't forget, 10 runner. If you're not having fun, make it fun. And, good night, Vancouver. Check out the TikTok.